Rick Barry here on the program. How are you, Rick?
I'm doing great. How you been?
I've been great. I'd love to get your thoughts on what your vantage point of this Warriors run for the ages, as it seems to be.
Well, I mean, they're the best team in the league. There's no question about that in my mind, and they're playing exceptionally well in the playoffs. They had a few games where they were a little bit subpar. They have a tendency to shoot themselves in the foot occasionally, as most teams do, but overall they respond to the challenge, and they've done a terrific job of taking care of the business that has to be taken care of. And now they find themselves for the first time in 40 years with a chance to win another championship, and I see no reason why they shouldn't win it if they play the type of basketball they're capable of playing. And that's why you have to play the games, because on paper it doesn't mean anything. It's what you do out on the court. So, I mean, I was surprised that the Cavaliers swept the Hawks, to be honest with you, especially considering that, you know, Kyrie wasn't a factor and they didn't have Love. It was a pretty impressive victory for them. Well,
LeBron is taking pretty much everything on his shoulders right now, Rick. It's pretty remarkable what he's doing and what a what a role he has taken on with this team. And there's a lot of discussion of best ever with LeBron right now. Where do you stand on this subject?
Well, you know, people get into that all the time, and I always laugh because it's just so wrong. Because in a team sport, you can't pick the best player. You have to pick people by positions. LeBron's the best three to ever play the game. There's no question in my mind about that. But to compare him to Michael Jordan, Michael's a two. There's different skills involved playing the two, although the two and the three are probably as close as you get when it comes to being a player. But he's the best three. You know, to say he's the best ever, it's crazy. I mean, you can't compare him to Wilt Chamberlain. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
So what do you think of LeBron's game? You say he's the best three ever?
Yeah, I think he's the best three, and it's kind of scary. I mean, you know, he still could be better. There's a lot of things that he has. He has flaws in his game, and, you know, he's still that great a player. It's just, I mean, if he ever learns to do some of the other things that he doesn't do really well right now, they'll have to outlaw him.
Well, what are those things, Rick? What do you think those things are?
Well, I mean, I made a big deal about his shooting years ago, if you remember, and he finally got his elbow in, and look at what's happened with his shooting. It's improved dramatically. He's still not a great free throw shooter. If he got to be a better free throw shooter with his strength and power and athleticism, you know, he should be getting to the free throw line, you know, 15 times a game, and he'll make a lot of those and have a lot of three-point tries, but I don't think he's ever been an 80% free throw shooter in his career in the NBA, and he needs to do that. He needs to learn how to face up and use his first dribble as a productive dribble. Everything is off the dribble, and as great a passer as he is, it would make him that much more effective, because if you have the ball in your hands, you can do so much more with it. I mean, if I always tell players when I coached the minor leagues, I said, look, if you're dribbling the ball, as you dribble the ball, if your teammate sees this man turn his head and he makes a back cut to the basket, how are you going to get him the ball? I mean, you can't. It's not even in your hands. But if LeBron would learn to be able to face his man up and learn how to beat his guy using that first dribble effectively and still have the ball in his hands, you know, he becomes even a greater weapon than he is right now. And then using screens effectively and things. I remember when he was back with the Cavs again, he was playing against the Spurs, because obviously I was watching that with my son there. You know, he come off a screen and he's got Bowen trailing him, and at that time, and instead of curling it, which takes Bowen out of the equation, he was running to the foul line to catch the ball. Now Bowen's up in his grill. I mean, it's just little things like that, little subtle things that if somebody told him as great a player as he is, he would pick up on him very quickly, and he'd take his game to a whole new level.
Rick Barry, Hall of Famer, 1975 Finals MVP for the Warriors, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show, the MVP of the Warriors right now and the league, Steph Curry. So much being made of his pure shooting and how he shoots the ball. Rick, what are your thoughts on Steph Curry?
Well, the thing about Steph is he's made himself into a great basketball player. He was, you know, just came in, he was a shooter. You know, now he's a scorer. He goes to the basket, he gets to the free throw line, and he's become a facilitator. So, I mean, he's a triple threat. You know, I don't know if I've seen anybody with as quick a release as he has and the kind of confidence that he has. I mean, he thinks he's going to make everything he throws up there, and I think the fans feel the same way. I know every time he shoots, people are surprised when it doesn't go in, especially from the left corner. Yeah, he's an amazing player, and he's fun to watch, and he just has to be take a little bit better care of the ball at times. He's improved over what he was a couple of seasons ago, and he's doing a much better job of that, but he still has a tendency sometimes to make the fancy pass as opposed to the simple pass, and that sometimes gets the team in trouble. When they turn the ball over, that's when they cause problems for themselves. And if they're shooting it poorly and turning the ball over, you know, then they have a real issue on their hands. And that's what happened to them against Memphis in those two games that they lost. They shot terribly from three-point range, and then they also were turning the ball over, and their defense wasn't where it needs to be. But when their defense is up, even if they're doing those other things, because Game 5 against the Rockets was a perfect example of that, they were horrendous offensively in the first quarter. but they were still in the game. Even though they turned the ball over, even though they shot poorly, they were there because their defense kept them in the game. And that's why you have to be a good defensive team in order to win a championship. And if the Warriors, and they still haven't done it, they haven't played 40 minutes of good basketball on both ends of the court in any game so far in this playoff. And if they ever do that, they're going to absolutely crush somebody really badly. They came close against the Rockets when they beat them badly in Houston, but they still haven't done that.
So, have you spoken to Steph? Has he reached out to you, or vice versa, at all?
No, I saw the guys when I was back there, and when we had our 40th anniversary for the championship at the end of the season, and just talked to them and told them how much we enjoy what they're doing, and we all said basically that if you guys play a 7-game series against any team in this league and you play basketball the way you're capable of playing for any extended period of time, you will not lose that series. Now, it's easy to say that, but you got to go out there and do it. So far, they've managed to do that. They have one more opportunity, and they can call themselves champions.
Now, we know about your kids. We've seen them grow up. We've seen them play hoops. Did at any point of your playing career you think of bringing your kids to a press conference in the same way that Steph has done with his daughter, Rick?
They didn't have those when I played. They didn't have stuff like that when I played. It was a joke. I mean, it's a whole different world right now, but I would have no problem taking my kid to a press conference. What difference does it make? It's all part of the family. I mean, it's important. It is. It's just you can't worry about that. So
what do you think of the debate that I guess that has sparked with Riley Curry being brought to the post-game podium, Rick?
What's the big deal? It's his kid. I mean, if he's got his kid and he wants to have his kid with him, so what's the big deal? I don't understand it. I mean, if the league made a rule against it, then then he'd have a problem with it.
That's right.
So it's just one of those things that you can't. I can't fault the guy for doing that. I mean, hell, you love your kids and you have your. Hey, my boys were ball boys all the time. You kidding me? They were there when we were playing and winning, and it was a great experience to have them be a part of that. I think they could talk about the memories they had. I remember Dick DeLever, our trainer, grabbing John and wrapping him in his arms when the fans came pouring out in the court against Chicago, so he wouldn't get trampled by the fans. But I mean, they were there and a part of it. I mean, how many parents are lucky enough to have their kids go to work with them? I had that good fortune, so I wouldn't have any issues with that. But they didn't have those big kind of press conferences and all the media stuff set up like that. I mean, heck, our games were on tape delay, for God's sake, when we played in '75. It was a joke.
Yeah. What do you think of the way Popovich deals with the media, Rick? What do you think of that?
Well, he'll respond well if you give him a good question, give him a dumb question, and he makes you look like a fool. So I have no problem with that. Ask smart questions. Don't ask dumb questions.
Last question for you, Rick. When you see DeAndre Jordan
I cringe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's we've now reached the point where coaches like Popovich and other coaches in the league are having their players grab onto a player before they're even 10 feet in bounds on the other side of the court to just put these people on the free throw line. What do you think of the free throw shooting that we saw in that?
Well, it's horrendous. I mean, Dwight Howard put him in the equation. Bogut's terrible. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that are absolutely horrible, and it's but people are just conversation about changing the rules to do. That's insane. So I'm saying. So let's take it, Rich. You can relate to this. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're playing in the playoffs in the in football, and you're going to say, okay, well, you're playing. You can only throw 3 times. For a receiver to try to catch the ball against the guy who's the defensive back, because he's a weak defensive back, so let's not exploit him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, you get a guy, and what's happening now, the coaches are forced to have to take these guys out of games because they become a liability. Go learn how to shoot free throws. I mean, to change the rules of the game to help protect somebody who's horrible at one of the skills that you're supposed to be good at is ludicrous.
So when you see DeAndre Jordan, I know you say you cringe. What can you do to help?
Well, he should try anything. I mean, why would he not try underhanded? I know George Johnson, my teammate, was 40-something% free throw shooter, and he actually wound up shooting 80% one season. But you take DeAndre, you take Dwight Howard, you get them to be 80% free throw shooters, they become go-to people at the end of the game. Instead of going to the bench, you actually keep them on the court and throw the ball to them.
So why does underhanded work better, do you think?
Because, I mean, any physicist, they've done all kinds of different tests on this and analysis, and they just say that it's the most efficient way to shoot a free throw. It's the softest shot you can shoot. Your arms are in a natural position. There's so many reasons why you should try to do it, but their egos, I don't know why. What's the big deal? I mean, if they go in, that's all that matters. I remember telling my dad, I can't shoot that way. They're going to make fun of me, Dad. Back then, the girls used to shoot that way. They don't even shoot that way now. Mm-hmm. And he said, son, I remember it like it was yesterday. They can't make fun of you if you're making them.
When it's all said and done in the NBA Finals, what do you think happens, Rick?
I think the Warriors win in 5 or 6 games at the most.
And what do you think that would mean for the area?
Well, I don't mean for the area. I'm just happy that the fans would have a chance to celebrate another championship after 40 years. They've been so loyal to the team for so many years. I'm happy for Joe Lacob and Peter and the ownership group and the front office personnel and everybody. I mean, even the whole office staff. Everybody's done a great job. They've worked hard to try to bring a championship back to the Bay Area, and they're as close as they've ever been in 40 years. And there's no reason if they don't win. It's because of the fact that they didn't play their best basketball. The Cavaliers may wind up playing great and beating them if the Warriors are off their game. But if the Warriors are on their game, I don't see any way that if both teams play their best basketball, that the Warriors would lose the series.
Rick, thanks for the time.
Hey, let me throw out Rick Barry 24. People check it out. Some of the things I'm doing, they may be able to go on a fishing trip with me. That's my new passion in life. Always good to talk to you, Rich. RickBarry24.com.
RickBarry24.com. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate it.
All righty. Take care. Bye-bye.
You bet. That's Rick Barry.
The Rich Eisen Show. Weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.